I've noticed a bit of a pattern when it comes to the many enemies and foes that Sonic and friends face throughout the games and some of the comics. They're just monsters. Simple, no real intelligence, going off of wild beast instinct monsters. There are a few exceptions, of course, that I don't really need to list off since we all know them. And even in the comics, there's less of these demonic, somewhat godly creatures that just happen to exist in Sonic's world. And that's what the last video was about. Interjack. A godlike character that seemingly had endless reserves of power and energy that appears 4 times, but has only really achieved their goal once. And of course, the previous beasts I mentioned don't really have anything they strive for, they just exist. However, there was one demon that did have plans and aspirations they wanted to complete. Surprisingly, they also had a vast amount of power. Not even in terms of being able to fucking time travel, but the deadliest thing you could give a monster, a mind. And that's who Mephiles was. I did plan to have this video out right after Eggman's, but I remembered that Interjack is kind of fun to talk about as well, so I went and did that as soon as I could, before I got to the demonic purple hedgehog. Anyways, Mephiles the Dark. Named possibly based off the mythological demon Mephistopheles, a creature that's a servant of the devil himself, which is rather fitting for what most consider him as, an actual demon from hell or anything of the sort, though Mephiles only works for himself. And that's the very interesting thing about him compared to pretty much every other antagonist, villain, or monster in the series. He knew what he was doing. He was a monster with a mind. He had intelligence. He could think. He could speak without a mouth somehow. He could do it all. Like, really, he could. The amount of power this guy had is nearly unparalleled. He could shapeshift, which is why he chose Shadow's appearance, create clones of himself, energy blasts and laser beams, time travel, chaos, and people manipulation. It's crazy. And mind you, that's only half of the power he could technically do. Because let's remember, he is half of Solaris. He's the intellect of said being, while Iblis is the unstoppable lava beast. And I'm going to make this slight disclaimer while I'm at it. I'll also be speaking about Iblis and Solaris here because they are literally a part of Mephiles, so I might as well expand upon them now. So not just listing off the powers that Mephiles has, his history is something worth talking about and pretty damn confusing because of how time travel works in the first place, and Sonic 06 being, well, Sonic 06. Mephiles comes from the Solaris project, when it went haywire, exploded, and split Solaris, this tiny little candle that was worshipped for one reason or another. He gets split into 2 beings. Iblis, he becomes through the fire and flames by Dragon Force, and more importantly, the raw power of the god. Mephiles was the mind and intelligence of the deity. Both of them sealed away separately. Iblis sealed away into a child that was taught to not really show any sign of real human emotion. Don't know why that breaks the seal, or what the hell the father was thinking. Whatever.
It's time to return.
Where am I? Where's my dad?
I'm afraid I have some bad news. No, don't, please don't cry. I'll do anything. Just don't. No!
Mephiles was sealed into the Scepter of Darkness, which still also doesn't really make any sense, because he says it was destined to happen, as in it technically already happened, without Shadow going back to the past in the first place, but Shadow was still, like, sleeping for the next decade or so, okay, weird plot holes aside, Mephiles of course wanted to find a way to fuse back with his other half as soon as he broke out of the object that imprisoned him. With all of that, he was an actual character at least compared to most. Sure, he ultimately wanted destruction, but at least he did it by his own means and through his own tactics. He had interactions with characters such as Silver and Shadow. Oh, especially Shadow. I already more or less brought up their duality in Shadow's video from his point of view, but just to quickly touch upon it here, Mephiles is constantly trying to get Shadow to betray the world before the world betrays him. But Shadow's already gone through his character arc, of course, and says, yeah, I'm not falling for that for a 3rd time. I always say this, but it's pretty funny that Sonic's story doesn't really deal with either of these 2 beings face to face, but it's Shadow and Silver's jobs to do so. Shadow fought with all of his power to beat the mind of Mephiles, Silver used his mind to beat the all-powerful Iblis. Poetic. Sonic deals with Eggman, who at least wanted to harness either power, which is why he had his eye on the Scepter of Darkness in the first place, and we all know why for Elise.
Okay, if you're going to commit suicide, would you please shed a tear before doing so?
And I think most of us forget that there are two Mephiles that do exist in the overall story. The one most would think is from Shadow's story, who is Mephiles as his fullest as a villain, really being active. The other is from Silver's story, who brings him and Blaze to the main timeline. That's the one that actually kills Sonic and fuses with Iblis. Again, I don't know why he had to kill Sonic in order to fuse with his other half. And no, I'm not talking about just to break the seal on Elise to free Iblis. I mean as in, he's already from the timeline of Iblis being free, so I don't know what he's waiting for. Especially seeing that there's no one in that timeline to stop him, more or less, and Iblis is at his peak power when he shows up in Silver's story. I don't know. My quick guess is just to have Sonic removed from the timeline because he is a potential threat. Maybe? Well, actually, now that I think about it, a better reason could be that Mephiles wants to mentally and psychologically torment Elise, seeing that she is the walking vessel for Mephiles' other half that he does want. So that's probably why, which is pretty fucked, but again, we could have just fused with him in the future. Weird storytelling aside, again, Mephiles actually achieved his goal. He got what he wanted and became what he was supposed to be, Solaris, who is, without a doubt, the most powerful enemy and character in the entire series. No, I'm serious. Just listen to how Eggman describes him.
That body of light is the sign of a superdimensional life form. Standard attacks won't work on him. He eats dimensions for lunch.
Oh, chaos flooded an entire city. That's cute. Dark Gaia cracked the planet into several pieces. Not bad. Black Doom's comet. Get that out of here. All of that is nothing to Solaris. This being, this thing, was about to rip the fabrics of space and time apart like it was nothing. Hell, even the wiki describes him as saying that it took 3 super forms to take him down. 3 of them! That's insane. Like, goddamn, no wonder people are pissed at Elise for even slightly hesitating to remove Solaris from existence, even if he was just a little light. Like, holy flaming candle shit. Now, as per usual with my Sonic videos, by this point, I go and talk about their moments in the comics, but surprisingly, Mephiles never really makes a full debut in the comics. I've mentioned that how the comics deal with the idea of continuity and the idea of the games is that they'll have a short story that slightly leads into the games from the comics' perspective and world, but they're only there for like half an issue and act like nothing happens afterwards. The only ones that have gotten proper adaptations was Sonic Adventure, and they handled Unleashed completely differently, which was still nice. However, even with what I just said, 06 didn't really get a comic sneak peek, at least to my memory. They say that the events of 06 happened to some degree, but depending on when it would take place, it wouldn't make any lick of sense whatsoever. Mostly due to Silver appearing in the comics 2 years later after 06's release, and his first appearance had nothing to do with Mephiles' influence, and I mean, you get the point, it just wouldn't work. The only cameo Mephiles has had was from Scourge's saga in the Universe series, where he's already incarcerated in Zone Jail, but other than that, nothing. Dude just can't catch a break from being trapped. Which remarkably would lead into the big question then. If Mephiles is so good, how come there isn't a Mephiles 2? Or a better question, how come he never shows up again? Like, at all? It's not even from the fact that he is pretty cool and rather iconic with being more on the creepy and eerie side. Dude is literally the only villain to kill Sonic. Why wouldn't you want to bring him back? Fans seem to really like him as well. So much so that even one of the head writers for the comics from Archie and IDW, Ian Flynn, wanted to bring him back into the comics fully in another Shadow-centric story, along with Black Doom. But only Doom made it through, and I guess they had to settle with making a knockoff Mephiles named Eclipse. Upon looking more into this, it's kind of stunning how many hints there were here and there into really wanting Mephiles back. A popular theory is that the Time Eater from Generations is leftover residue of the demonic creature, seeing that the Time Eater was purple and its main power was time travel, or at least time manipulation. Once again, even Mr. Flynn agrees with this theory, but no one has really said anything about it being official. Look at Infinite from Forces. Dude just screams that he could have been Mephiles, which apparently was a scrapped idea that he was supposed to be brought back by Eggman, but Infinite is just Infinite, and more importantly, just a jackal given powers who definitely has some personal problems. So what is it then? Well, I really couldn't find a proper answer. The only thing that has been said is from Takashi Iizuka saying that there's no real plans to bring him back, and he only served the plot of 06, and that's it. And that was said in 2017, so not too long ago. Maybe it's because they think that he's too dark and gritty for the series, like killing Sonic, I don't think you can top that. Maybe it's from the fact that he is half of another being, and to have Mephiles, you would need to have Iblis as well. So if we're taking that into account, the best way for him to come back into the games is to basically remaster 06. Which isn't entirely a ludicrous idea, seeing that there is quite a big backing for wanting that to happen, or at least make it into what it was really supposed to be, and add even more with the whole boost formula, make everything not as buggy with the gameplay and less confusing with the story. That's the best option if they don't have plans to add him into anything else going onwards. It's pretty ironic that the character who has the power to time travel has an undetermined future. You love to see it. But other than all of that, that is pretty much the video on Mephiles the Dark. I also do wish that he would get more of the spotlight, you could say, or at least brought back as a villain and antagonist within the story. I mean, he can only really serve as to be a villain because, you know, the dude just kind of wants to see everything burn and be destroyed as much as possible. I really don't know why. I don't know why he really has that goal, but hey, I mean, it worked for the story. He did it his own ways, and it was done pretty damn well, I would say, compared to, like, anything and anyone else that there was. Besides Eggman, of course, because Eggman's just Eggman, but Mephiles, yeah, he's pretty damn good. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, you know, to do with all the links that I provide and everything of the sort. Stay safe out there. Thank you for watching. That's greatly appreciated, of course. Have a great day, have a great night, and everything else, you know what to do. Bye.